Culture is kind of a tricky one that we're always talking about. And how do you build a food safety culture? And I've just seen this fantastic uptick in food safety culture kind of across the board at Local Bounty since we really started utilizing provision and transitioning to SQF. So it just creates this cohesive team where people feel like they're a part of that effort versus just this siloed off food safety department.
That was Kyle Farmer of Local Bounty. And in this podcast, you'll hear more about just what's helped him improve food safety culture at facilities across the United States. Kyle, thanks so much for speaking with me today and being willing to share your experience with Provision. Could you introduce yourself and your role, as well as share a bit about Local Bounty for those listening who might not be familiar?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Kyle Farmer. I am the Director of Food Safety and Quality Assurance for Local Bounty. I have been with Local Bounty for just a little bit over a year. Local Bounty is still a new company, just a couple of years old, and they started as a CEA grower in Montana, and they have been rapidly expanding with operations in the Atlanta area. We are opening up new facilities in Pasco, Washington, and just outside of Dallas, Texas, here in the next month. So we are a CEA grower of leafy greens, and we're still in that space of expanding, but also learning and just understanding what it is to be a CEA grower and what that means as far as regulation and audits and what are the expectations for people in the CEA space when it comes to certifications and who you're using. So it's been very fast paced. It's been a really fantastic adventure thus far.
Yeah, fast paced. You're not kidding. You guys have been expanding like crazy, and it's great to see. So tell us a bit about how Local Bounty used to manage documentation and the food safety program before you went digital with Provision.
It was a combination of hard copy stuff, form site, NetSuite, just really pulling all those things together so that you could satisfy all the requirements that you're looking for. But that's obviously very confusing and cumbersome and just difficult to manage, right? And then when you have turnover or process changes, if everything's hard copy, to make sure that everybody has the current version is a difficult task on its own. So the idea of a digital platform where all that could be centralized was absolutely appealing from the get-go.
The devil of document control is truly a universal experience, I think. So, what stood out about Provision when you were considering digital options that led you and your management team to choose it?
Yeah. So in my last role at Stamil, I sat through a ton of presentations and pitches on this is why you should use our program. And a lot of them honestly were like programs that had been pre-existing and that they were trying to adapt to the produce world and to the food safety world for compliance. And I just saw problems with those adaptations, right? And the thing that stuck out with Provision was just really what we needed without any of the bells and whistles that we didn't need or that we were going to have to ignore.
And so, how's it gone since you moved over to Provision?
I honestly can't say enough good things about Provision. From the team to the software itself, it's been absolutely fantastic.
So, Local Bounty is SQF certified currently. Let's talk briefly about audit prep and execution. How's that changed for you guys since going digital?
Anybody who's been through an audit knows that audit time, no matter how prepared you are, when that auditor shows up and comes and sits down and starts asking you for things, you start to draw blanks sometimes, right? And you just don't remember exactly where you put it or who has it or what the most current version is or if it's been followed up on and signed off on. So you start to scramble, and that scrambling drives more panic and more scrambling. And then the auditor notices that and starts to dig in a little more. Having Provision where I can bring an auditor in and sit them down and show them that resources tab, show them where our SOPs, where our policies live. And, if you number it to the code, they can just start kind of making their way down the list. I mean, I think in one of my last audits, the auditor didn't talk to me for like 3.5 hours because they were just making their way through the program and finding what they needed to find. It was super easy to navigate and the auditor loved it. It made their job easier.
That's so great to hear. Now, I know when we had our initial conversation before this session, you had mentioned one of your favorite features is getting live notifications, regardless of time zone, wherever the facility is. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I've got managers and teams reporting to me in literally every time zone. And so sometimes my day starts at, 3 a.m. and doesn't get over until 9 p.m. And I'm traveling. I'm always on planes. I'm always on the road. And so to have this dashboard, this visibility into what's going on real time in my facilities, it's fantastic to be able to see that we need a corrective action and a root cause analysis done. because of XYZ, or, this truck inspection log had a problem, looking at it and knowing what's going on and what we might be missing, or even the wins, right? Being able to identify what's going really well, who's knocking it out of the park, who needs a pat on the back. It affords me those opportunities in a very, very busy schedule. And so it's been truly fantastic in that regard.
Awesome. So just to wrap things up and bring everything full circle, I know we talked about how rapidly Local Bounty has been expanding. So how's the future looking? Any plans for more expansion with provision in your back pocket?
So as we open up these new facilities, being able to take, for example, our program in Georgia that's up and running, been audited in good standing. We have an operation in Texas that we're going to be opening up here in the next month. We can essentially copy and paste a lot of our policy that is kind of universal to Local Bounty and then edit as we need to. So it's not recreating from the ground up. It's not having to sit down and rewrite all of the SOPs and policies. There's obviously differences based on which facility you're at and which team you're working with. But when compared to like just building a program from the bottom up and starting at the very bottom of the stairs, this has allowed us to really take a program, transfer it to a new facility, to a new operation, train the team on it, make those edits, and then hit the ground running. It's been a fantastic tool as far as our expansion and growth. It's really allowed us to just kind of keep charging ahead and not have to hold up and not have everybody else be waiting on the food safety department to get all of the compliance stuff in order.
Yeah, it's got to be nice not to have to reinvent the wheel every time you start somewhere fresh, right? Okay, if there's one thing you could say to someone who is considering going digital, whether they're on SQF or another certification program, if there's one thing you could say to those people, what would you tell them?
I would say you need a partner, and Provision is that partner. They're the ones, because they're offering all the things that we need as food safety people, and it makes our lives easier. And I'm always a proponent of anything that makes my life easier when it comes to managing several programs across the entire country.
Fantastic. Well, I think you're not alone in that. Whatever makes your life as a food safety manager easier is what you should go with. All right. Thanks again, Kyle, so much for taking the time. And thanks everyone for listening.